And speaking of older fighters, Ciryl Gane stops JDS. Um, After JDS, actually, again, man, it's the same song every JDS fight. JDS was actually looking pretty good, and then he was face down on the canvas. It's it sucks to see, but I yeah, I don't think you should fight anymore, man. I don't. Especially not at least not at this level, not at the level that he's fighting at. I don't granted, I also don't want him to get cut because bare knuckle FC is a reality and they prey on the vulnerabilities of former UFC fighters. So I guess that's a future career possibility for JDS. But beyond that, Gon looked awesome. That elbow, while it was illegal, it was not illegal. Doesn't really matter because it's not going to get overturned. So, what do you think about the fight?
Yeah, we go way back with JDS. It's rough watching him get messed up again for like the fourth straight time getting knocked out. But it is what it is, dude. He's an old guy now. He's just an old man, and he's clearly not going to get anywhere near the UFC heavyweight belt again. So then the question is, okay, well, what are you doing here exactly? Do you just want to be a guy that like hangs out in the UFC and like fights the dudes that are coming up that are 6-0, or are you more interested in maybe going over to Bellator and then having a swing at Ryan Bader for potentially getting a belt in the last stage of your career? Because that's a guy. Junior's a guy that's like 2-3 more years probably of fighting max. So yeah, honestly, I would probably cut him from the UFC at this point.
Yeah, it's a trend that is going to keep going after Dana White. You know, part of me thinks that Dana White being as public and specific as he was when he was like, yeah, it's going to be 60 fighters getting cut, some tough decisions. A part of me, I don't, granted, this is a very cynical take on that because maybe, Dana White probably was like, yeah, the decisions are tough and yeah, 60 fighters are got to go. But I also think that it's a message to the old guys, especially the well-paid old guys, to be like, hey, if you're not going places in the sport anymore, you're probably going to get cut, or at the very least, you're not gonna like Overeem when you resign. If you Overeem's actually a bad example because he just keeps like kind of winning in a very Arlovsky-esque way. He just like will win. But yeah, like JDS, you might get an offer. It's not gonna be, it's not gonna be as much. And if it's not good enough, then I guess you're one of the tough decisions that we got to make.
It's like it's forcing the hands of a whole generation of guys right now that like some of them are starting to see the writing on the wall. Like for instance, um, your Overeem, your Diego, and your Donald Cerrone. All three of those guys have come out and been like, I'm done soon. I don't have a lot longer left in me. I just want, either to go on one last run or just I want one or two more fights. But like those are all guys that have acknowledged, all right, it's about to end here. I'm just here to wrap up some loose ends, which is what I feel like the UFC's been doing with a lot of these guys lately. Just been like, okay, like with Anderson, heavy shoulder shrug, and Anderson being like, yo, wrap it up. Like we're letting you stay here, but this is going to be your last one, like because if you keep trying to go on, then we're going to cut you.
Yeah, and again, it just keeps going. Like this conversation, I think is going to be. I would imagine um, these cuts probably have to do with a certain like fiscal year. I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because I guess because if it's not linked to some end date, then it's kind of a meaningless statement. Like Dana White could have also said, like, we're gonna cut 500 fighters with no end date. That could be like, in the next year, or it could be in a decade. Like, it doesn't. Yeah, I guess it's true. He's gonna cut the size of the roster, but in how long?
It's
So
that's
I have,
gotta it's gotta be related to them not having gates all year. Every single one of these cards, they've been denied a gate for it. So, it's like 10,000 minimum each time, especially on some of the bigger pay-per-views, like big money that they missed out on. So yeah, I'm sure they're like, all right, some of these old dudes that have big contracts or paying a lot of money to, and you're not gonna get fucked up. We're gonna quit doing business with you.
yeah. I also think that it's probably like, okay, so we already agree we're not going to talk about it much, but the the class action deal, right? I also have a feeling that letting a lot of these guys go and letting them sign other places, like Yoel, like letting him out of his contract early, things of that nature, um, by some could be seen as an antidote to the argument that the UFC controls the market.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so whatever. I'm again another kind of cynical take, but it's the UFC,
What?
dude, and it's the fight game. So I mean, like, there's not a ton of people looking out for these fighters outside of possibly their coaches,
Yeah,
possibly.
you're right. One thing I
Um,
do want to hit before we bounce on, real quick, that was mostly a discussion on JDS. I just want to touch on Ciryl Gane real
mhm,
quick.
yeah.
I personally am not that impressed with Ciryl Gane. I haven't really paid attention to him much before this fight, and I didn't see anything from him in the fight against JDS that made me be like, man, he's going to be a threat at the top of the division. I see him losing whatever his next fight is because above JDS is going to, I mean, have him ranked at like number 7 or something in the heavyweight division now. I don't like his chances against any of those top heavyweights right now. But he could shock me and show me something that I haven't seen yet. But overall, he still looks fairly um, unmolded to me. I mean, he's
Yeah.
only 6-0. So we'll see. He's been kind of shoved into the top of the division very quickly. But I'm not
Well,
not personally all that impressed yet.
yeah. I mean, to me, um he looks like a refined kickboxer, like a Muay Thai operator, but more like a European style kickboxing, and um, use the elbows to end the fight on Saturday. But um, yeah, I would agree. He's not a flashy heavyweight. He stops people, but he's not horrifying in the way that, like,
Granted,
Ngannou is horrifying. Um, Gane is big and he's very skilled on the feet. I'm I have not studied him. I've not looked into his background, but I have to imagine that he had some sort of competitive kickboxing or competitive Muay Thai in his background. Um,
yeah, I believe it was extensive kickboxing record.
yeah, because if not, he is a phenom at 7-0 to beat a former UFC champion. Um, Granted, a diminished one, but I don't think there's many 7-0 heavyweights that could beat JDS, even in a diminished state. Um, because again, JDS looked good until he got stopped. And Gane, that's the thing that impresses me about Gane, right? Is that he's only 7-0 and he's already taken out a former champion. I think that I think that his kickboxing experience came through. Um, JDS was never able to make the fight dirty. He was never really able to get on the inside or use his punches effectively. And that was because Gane was very aware and moved well and used his kicks effectively. So yeah, I think he's young for a heavyweight. He's 30. Yeah, he's 30. He was born in 1990, and that's young for a heavyweight. So he's got time. And I do agree, though. There's no like one thing in particular about him that makes me go, "Oh, dang, you got to watch out for this with Ciryl Gane." But he's clearly good. I mean, but yeah, there's nothing that like hooks me about him.